Lately, I've kind of become more of a traditional martial artist with my karate program. So not so, well, that means not so much emphasis on point karate, not so much emphasis on sparring, on fighting, more emphasis on forms, more emphasis on what the forms mean. We do a lot of work with, well, I do a lot of work. I do a lot of my teaching methodology is trying to get people to appreciate the stuff that they do in the forms has real application. And the stuff that they're practicing in the forms is not just being done in the air. It is something that you would actually use. And that to me is always, when I first started off, I hated forms. And I love fighting. Now I've shifted and I'm the other way with that. It used to be where I would make sure I was here and down here all the time and would fight as much as possible, and that was great. Now I fight sometimes. Matter of fact, Fabiano's last tournament in Holland, I entered, and that was the first tournament in 15 years, as near as I could figure out, that I had actually entered. The shift, like I said, has been more towards the forms and the application of the forms. There's a lot of people out there with, like, you know, telling me that forms are no good and there's no real value to forms. And you know what? I would have agreed with them 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I would have agreed with that. I saw no value in them. However, now I've come to appreciate the value and come to understand a little better what it is that's actually in those groups of movements that we're practicing. And the traditional forms, as traditional as we do them, which isn't exactly correct, but you know, pretty close. There's just a tremendous wealth of self-defense application for that. And as long as you don't get stuck in this move is only good for this technique, this move is only good for this attack mentality, you can get a lot out of them. And with that kind of goes along with my other shift too, is like, okay, not so much full contact kickboxing, but more realistic self-defense, which we've been doing a whole lot of. It wasn't so much that I specifically sought out more information on the forms. It was kind of a process where I had done them so much that I was starting to see what could be done with the techniques in the form. I mean, I hate to say this. When I started off taking karate, I had asked about forms and what the stuff in the forms meant, and you know, it's like, you know, I was telling the guy that owned the school then, Brian Lee, that I hated him, and he took a standard line, which back in the 70s, the standard line was, well, you know, do them, learn them, you'll get to that stuff later on. And one of the things about getting to that stuff later on was, well, hopefully your instructor stuck around long enough, which hardly anybody ever does, to teach you the stuff later on, but they didn't know either. I mean, they really, you know, the guys that were teaching back then were like fresh out of karate school instructors that got a black belt and started teaching, and really didn't have an appreciation for the form either. They didn't really know what it was that they were doing. So, you know, you keep on doing them, you keep on doing them, you keep on doing them, and like I said, at some point in time, it started to occur to me that, hey, you know, somebody's throwing a punch at me, somebody's throwing a kick at me, somebody's grabbing me. I have a lot of different options with this technique.